It's aggressive. That lag when I'm taking that picture at the beginning, it just takes its precious time, doesn't it? Alrighty, so alrighty. I hesitate to even make any plans at this point because our state is now on orders to stay at home. All non-essential businesses are required to remain closed, and some other businesses are opting to do the same. So, like, I finished work today. I finished my work today, left to go get some things for working on, and the hardware stores, which technically essential because if your sink breaks or your toilet breaks or something like that, you don't want that to be something you can't stop from getting worse. So those are considered essential businesses. But they have decided that they want to close early. They're not completely closed, but 6 p.m. is when they closed up shop today, and I finished work at 6 p.m. So it meant I couldn't get some of the things I wanted to get to do the stuff I want to do. I did manage to go over to Walmart and had a little time in there. They're closing early as well, so I had to keep that in mind. But on top of that, they're starting to cut hours at work, which honestly I'm okay with. I'm okay with them deciding, we don't need you as many days a week. That would be super special right now. But the crowd that we had in the store today was not less than it has been. It's been an average day, as if this weren't even happening. And I would put some of that down as some people are staying home. But the people who are now forced to not be at work don't want to be trapped inside their homes with their families. And so they're trying to find a place to be out. And with half the other stores or more all closing, they can't go to the mall. They can't go to other places. So they're coming to our store. But they're not spending as much as they were 2 weeks ago, which means that our income is not up to what they need to staff it completely. So they're going to cut hours some. So I will hopefully get less hours. I don't know for sure because I am sort of like a indispensable person for the store, which I guess to a certain degree I'm supposed to feel good about. There's a part of me is like, can you just say like we don't have to come in for like a month? I kind of want to do some other things. Like we got a bunch of seeds. I want to start a garden with my landlord. He's into wanting to do that now. So there's a kind of a desire to go forward with. I mean, to be fair, we're probably already going to have some things growing in this year. Last year in fall, I had been getting some. What was it that? Organic heritage or heirloom vegetables from local farms, and some of them I couldn't eat them fast enough because I was getting people like it was a great year for tomatoes especially, and so I had all these tomatoes and some of them were just going bad before I could get to them, so I went and left them on the ground at the perimeter of the property. So there are a whole bunch of different spots all around the property that'll potentially be growing tomato vines this year. And I'm okay with that. I'm curious to see what we can do with that. But where I work, we also had seed packets come in for sale. It's like 25 cents a packet for seeds. And we have peas, beans, radishes, carrots. I got a couple different varieties of squash, some lettuce and some spinaches. and just a lot of really good nutritious vegetable seeds. Now, I don't know, they're 25 cents, so I think they're probably last year's seeds, but if they grow, they grow, So I'm curious to see if we can get any of them to grow at all, and see if we can get some food crops growing this year. That would be immensely fun to share with them. And then, like, I want to do some of my projects over on the Roving Jack channel. One of the things I started to do a while back in preparation for getting started back up there is to just kind of think about a once a week, maybe twice a week kind of thing, where I do a project video with narration over it. So I started, one of my sort of stupid, sort of fun projects was, yeah, it's sort of spoilery, but I made a wood glue as a byproduct of cooking food. So I did this video where I took images of me cooking up food on the stovetop, specifically cooking up some ground beef, and then draining off the liquid, cooling it so that the fat congeals at the top and hardens so they can flake it off, reducing down the, I guess it's broth at that point, the stock, and cooking that up and reducing it down and letting it cool at room temperature until it turns into a gelatin, then turning that out to dry in the environment, and you get a very tough, leathery type material that if you heat it, like any gelatin, if you take like Jell-O and you warm it in the microwave, it turns into a liquid again. And if you take this stuff and heat it again, it turns into a gummy semi-liquid, very much like a gel. And if you put it on pieces of wood, it's a type of wood glue that contracts as it sets. So it vices things. It kind of helps cinch pieces together. And I started the process of, and I've made that. I have to demonstrate its use and then edit the video up and then do an overtop narration. Now, the narration I'm thinking of doing is not about what I'm working on, and more of a just kind of a general chat to the audience kind of thing. And so I want to get to work maybe on some of that and maybe do a few other things like that, like a wheat paste glue. That's really more effective for using on paper products. And then play around with some simple projects that are paper and wood and stuff like that. And eventually what I'd like to actually see if I could do is I want to see if I can build a small forge/foundry from scrap materials and make it so that I can do some simple shaping of materials, specifically like junk cans and whatnot, and melting down of aluminum cans and casting those, and then processing the pieces that I've cast from them. And I would really love to be able to do each of those kinds of things. They're gonna be more time consuming, and in between those I can post and upload the Makerspace tours. And I just kind of hit the point recently where I'm like, I don't have to do those in the order that I traveled to. So I can just edit a series up and post it. And yeah, I just kind of want to get back to doing that. I want to do reviews of movies. I've got a bunch of taste test stuff pre-recorded that I can post. And I want to do books. And I think that's probably what I'm going to do most of on this channel for a little while. I do want to see if I can build up, I want to get some video game stuff going at a certain point, and I want to build an emulator using a Raspberry Pi that'll let me do some gaming stuff, and then see if I can hook that up so I can record screen footage and myself playing and reacting to those. And it might be kind of fun. I think for me, it would be fun to encourage or find a way to make it possible for people, like maybe through Scratch, like that online game creator, like different ways of making simple games that don't require a large investment. So like the BuildBox game development software that I have, that BuildBox is something I had to pay for, and BuildBox is something that I don't want to be the thing I focus on for a lot of people. So like I'm thinking like Scratch is that free software I've played with before, and there are libraries of games that people can see that other people have posted what they made. And I think it could be fun if I could do a series of like maybe not tutorials, because I'm not likely to do tutorials on how to program. That's not my forte. But encouraging people to learn and practice and play around with creating some simple games on Scratch, and then point me in the direction of those games so that I can, test them out and just sort of review and, talk about the game that was created here. And just kind of, I want it to be not so much like, I don't want to review, well, I could review some of the bigger games. I would like to play Last of Us 2 when it comes out. I'd like to play the original Last of Us. I'd like to play Overwatch, and the new Overwatch 2 that's going to come out at some point, I'd like to play. And I want to play Cyberpunk 2077 at some point. And that's 5 games right there I could have a fair amount of fun doing. I also would like to potentially see if I can get some of my games accessible. The thing I'm getting hung up on a little bit there is I had planned to release some of my games that I created last year and even before that as games for sale. But I feel like right now, if I release a digital version that other people can play, that if I release that game for free for people to play while quarantined and whatnot, I might not be able to release it as a game for sale later on. And so I'm like, I debate whether or not it's in my interest to do that right now. And I think the overwhelming impulse for me is to say yes. There's an overwhelming impulse to say, like, make the game available. If it means you never see a copy of that game because you can't after you've released it, nobody buys it because they can always just play it for free online. There's a part of me that says it's sort of like a lost opportunity. But at the same time, if it's a game that lots of people want to play, I kind of would just want to release it, give it to them to play. Like, yeah, it sucks that I probably won't be able to, make any. I won't be able to make income from my creation at that point. But I didn't create my games necessarily to become rich from. Created my games because I want people to play games. So maybe that's just what I have to settle for. It would be nice if my game creations could support me. That's just one of my feelings there. Like, I would like to be able to say that I didn't have to go out and seek out a part-time job in the future to support me while I create games. I'd like to be able to say my games were good enough that I didn't have to go find a part-time job. But like that's just sort of like a silly, I don't want to say like selfish want, but it really does feel like a secondary aspect of creating a thing. Like it's one of those, it's the artist's dilemma, I feel like, to a certain degree, where as an artist, I create art because there's something I want to express, and I want other people to see my expression and understand it, to communicate something and maybe touch on something that we all feel sometimes, or maybe hatch in somebody's mind a thing they hadn't thought of before. That's sort of what art is. It's a means of, at least for me, it's a means of communicating and connecting and understanding. And so that's the primary function of art for me. The idea of art as a means of not going hungry, that feels like a backwards path. And I don't know what, I don't know entirely what that emotional hang up on me is. The idea that there's a sense of like, maybe it just comes from that mentality of the artwork that I create isn't work, it's expression. And we have this, culturally, we have this sense that you get paid for work. Expression is something you just freely do. And so I guess the idea that the work that I do would be expressive works, then it can't be something I can be paid for. It's sort of, I don't know if that makes any sense. It just feels weird to say. And so overwhelmingly, I think there is that impulse to not even make it an option. And I do think I've had some interactions with people over the few years that I went to maker spaces, where a few people definitely said to me, like, no, like, I'm a little angry that you're not giving me the opportunity to support this thing that I'm interested in. And it's such an alien concept to me that somebody would support me and my projects by supporting my ability to live and do them. And it's a weird place to be in, because it shouldn't be that weird a feeling. Because when I see somebody who I respect their work and want to support them, I do. I make donations and I encourage them, and I try to help them set up connections with people who can further their growth and development as an artist or whatever. Like, I want to be somebody who helps that person go with their dream or their communication or their project or whatever they're doing. So I don't have any problem being the giver on a project like that. I think, and it's a weird commentary because it sort of matches with some of the other things, is like holiday gifts. Like, I love finding the perfect gift for a family member. It's one of my favorite parts of the holidays. It's like, oh, I know what would be amazing for them. And then, when they get me something, it's always this sort of like uncomfortable, like, thanks, I appreciate it. Even if it's something that I enjoy, I'm always a little uncomfortable with the fact that somebody's giving me something. And I don't, like, there are roots to it, and it's a little complicated, and I'm sure my counselor is dying to get me to dig down to those roots, because it is really a hang up. And I think it does interfere with my ability to do the things that are potentially good for me to do and rewarding to share with others. And I think it interferes with my ability to do that. So it's definitely something I need to work at. In the meantime, I have had so many ideas for things that I'd like to work on, and I don't have the time right now. And I feel like I'm hoping I guess we're at a stay at home order or whatever they call it in place. So it's sort of like all non-essential businesses are closed. But I mean, honestly, that doesn't mean as much as it feels like it should mean. Where we are, so Walmart's open, the liquor store is open, the dollar store is open. I I can't tell for sure. I saw a post the other day about Hobby Lobby being open, and they're actually not supposed to be because they are not an essential business. But here's the other thing: Bass Pro Shop and the shooting ranges in the area are open because apparently having guns and ammo make you essential. And I'm like, there's a part of me that's kind of angry about that. Like, in the running of a state where we are in a viral pandemic, you cannot eat bullets. You cannot drink them when you are thirsty. They do not keep you warm when you are cold. They do not keep you connected through communication. They do not resolve any problems. And if you're in the issue of somebody in your household being sick with the coronavirus, if your solution to them being sick is a gun with a bullet, that is a problem. There is no point at which guns and ammo are essential in a viral pandemic. So I don't know why they're open, but they are. So honestly, like, I just, it's frustrating when everything's sort of closed down, but do I want to do taste tests of things from the dollar store and do a series of videos on how to make real food out of dollar store components? I don't know. I mean, maybe it might be kind of fun to do a few of those videos. I don't know that I want to do a lot of them. I can get some books from the dollar store. I can get some movies from the dollar store. I can do a series on dollar store what to do when you're at home. Arts and crafts, books, movies, food, and just what to do with those things during the time that you're at home. And I kind of want to do some demos of my games, but it's again, it's one of those things where I can't really do some of them because I have to play with more than me, more people than myself. So some of my games might be a little harder to do that way unless I make digital versions that you can play with friends and family. And I may do that. I'm debating, like my Runcible food game, I think I can pretty much get up and running on a digital platform because I think if I remember correctly, the first deck, the original deck without the expansion decks is like a 75 card deck. And each one of them is really just a flashcard with a food item. And the rules are pretty straightforward after that. So I can make an additional card with the rules of the game on it, or a placemat with the rules of the game on it, and use Roll20 to play it. And from there, I feel like I could make that available for people to play on. I could do a demo with some friends or family members. and do the video online here, and then make it available for people to play during quarantine and shelter in place. I think that's kind of what I want to do. And then from there, I might be able to do the Captain Rita Raygun's Thrilling Interplanetary Adventures as a deck of cards. That one's a lot more cards, so it's a little more difficult to get, and I may have to do overly simplistic artwork for each of them. Just like a simple piece of line art or a silhouette, just because that's the easiest way and fastest way to get a piece of artwork for a card. So simple black and white, almost like a clip art picture, and then a written word on each card, and a set of instructions, and you're good to go. Now, I think it's like 112 cards for Captain Rita Raygun. So, I mean, it's still, you make each individual card. It could take some time. It's an afternoon to at least make each of those decks. And actually, I'm not sure if Roll20 lets you customize dice. If they do, I might be able to get my superhero dice game up and running too. So if I do each of those options, I could potentially release a few games as online games for people to play while in quarantine. That could be fun. And I want to do that Pen Pal video series for some of my friends who are, I can see them day by day getting a little more stir crazy. And I kind of just want to say, it's okay. You'll be okay. We can be here together, even if we can't be together. You don't have to feel like you're trapped and unable to socialize. So I kind of want to do that. And it's super hard to get that and Roving Jack up and running again and work what I'm doing right now. So I'm hoping I get a little more ease off on some of that right now so that I don't have to keep bouncing off of the limits on my time. But I do, like, I'm not gonna lie. I come home, I have something to eat, and then I check my social media to make sure, just check in on my friends and family, and then I watch a few videos for my entertainment. And I always feel a little guilty about that, half an hour, 45 minutes, sometimes an hour and a half of video watching, because I know if I use that time to make some of the things that I'm working on real, then it wouldn't be as severe an inability to do things. It wouldn't feel so severe. Like, I know 45 minutes to an hour and a half a day that I'm spending watching videos or talking with people on forums. If I spent that time working on some of my projects, in a week I could be done one of the projects, and next week I could do another one of the projects, and I'd get more done. But there's just sometimes that impulse of like, I'm in the need for not working on something for a little bit. And I feel guilty every time I do it, but I think it's important. Gotta kind of come to a grip with that at some point, I guess. I think the other thing I'm struggling with a little bit is I want to do like positive news. Like I want the pen pal sort of video style to be sort of like a friendly video to check in and see how people are doing and reassure them that everything isn't all horrible and that there are good things in the world and there are things to be happy about and enjoy. And then at the same time, I also want to do videos where I build a zombie apocalypse for tabletop role-playing games. And like, I feel like there's a little bit of a clash between those two things, and I'm always a little worried about having them on the same channel. And I was like, I don't know if I'm putting too much worry into that or not. It's sort of like a branding issue. Like, I can remember the first time I saw, well, there used to be these old commercials for the Wendy's restaurant. It was the founder, Dave Thomas, and he was this very sweet, nice seeming guy. And a very kind of not Carl Sagan. Who else can? Oh, Mr. Wizard, maybe. Not so much for science, but just kind of like a friendly neighborhood guy that you would be happy that your kids could go hang out with on an afternoon and learn something from. And he seemed like a really nice guy. And then I remember the first time I saw a bloopers reel of his commercials, where he oftentimes appeared in his commercials, and he kept flubbing his lines, and they bleeped him swearing that he kept screwing up his lines. And I was like, somehow, just in that moment, it's human. He's not evil for swearing, but it completely made it so that I couldn't see him as that Mr. Wizard type of character. He was another person now, and he got angry. He probably broke some things in his lifetime getting angry at things. He's sworn at things. He's probably fought with people. And so it's like, yeah, like we all do. But suddenly he wasn't that same thing that I used to have in my head. And so it made it harder for me to see him as that in the future. So if I end up doing something where I talk about finding the positive in your day and check in with people and reassure them that we're all here for each other and we can be there for each other, and give positive messages each day, to then do dark, twisted murder mystery storytelling or weird horror stories or things like that, feels like it breaks the brand enough that it feels like it's off brand. And I don't know how to reconcile that. And to a certain degree, I'm overthinking it. Like, there's a part of me says, like, no, it's perfectly logical that you can be both of those things. You can be empathetic and concerned about other people and want to reassure them and give them something positive to think about, and still be somebody who can write the murder of a child into a story. Like, you can do them both. Yeah, I don't know how to reconcile that. I guess at a certain point, the reconciliation of those aspects is me. Like, I am able to write horror stories, and I am able to tell people that I'm concerned about them and I hope they're doing well and that I love them very much. Like, I can do both of those things. It's just human, I guess. So I guess I shouldn't worry about it as much, and I should just go for it and figure it out as I go. I guess it's just, I hope I don't garble any of my messages because of it. And I guess that's kind of where I'm going to leave it tonight. We're at 35 minutes, which I'm surprised. I rambled about what feels like nothing for 35 minutes, but I guess I did. Tomorrow is the last day of the week. It's also the last work day until Wednesday. So I'm going to try to plot everything out from when I get back from work tomorrow all the way out to Tuesday night so that I can sit down and work on as much as possible to get it done in my free time, my first chunk of free time since I was sick, which wasn't really free time, but get some things done so that I can feel like I've achieved something at the end of those days. And when I go back to work on Wednesday, to be able to keep adding a little bit each day rather than having to do multiple days worth of work in a go. Basically get the momentum going so that I can add a little energy each time to keep the momentum going rather than having to get it crunching to a start every day. Can you see my screen as a reflection? Actually, that would be an interesting idea, to play with mirrors. And I mean, I guess it's one of those weird things, like a really good example would be, how shocking would it be to see a video of a Mr. Rogers slamming something down and swearing? Like, could you ever watch Mr. Rogers again? Like, could you ever see him as something other than what he did in that moment? And I was like, I don't want to be Mr. Rogers. I don't want that kind of responsibility. That's a big load to put on anybody. But like, just that, like, there's that sense of, I mean, I guess it's part of the reason when I started doing online content that I made different names to do things under. Like over on Roving Jack, I'm liable to show people how to make bladed objects and things that burn or explode. At a given point in my creative processes, I'm liable to make a flamethrower. I will probably show how to make a burning gel that you can use for heating things. And that's one type of thing to create. And I don't want to be mixed with the artsy part of me, because I think it garbles the message. I think it confuses things. And I think I struggle a little bit with it because I've always sort of noticed, even in my social circles, in my community of friends and family, I can never be all the parts of me at any given time. Like, I can go to a group gathering about tools and tinkering and electronics and computer programming, and that's a very versatile group of people working on a wide range of projects. But they don't care about cheesecake-filled donut holes dipped in dark chocolate and sprinkled with freeze-dried strawberry. They don't care about the designs for some modular clothing that uses like a gecko tape sealer instead of a Velcro. It's a design I've been working on for a long time, figuring out how to make some of those things happen. But it's not something like I can talk about nobody's going to make me feel bad for talking about them within the group of tinkers and programmers and whatnot. But their eyes are going to glaze over and they're going to, switch the frame of discussion or wander off to talk to somebody else because it holds no interest and they have no frame of reference for it. And I'm always a little Like, I have to pay attention because my interests are so all over the place. It's why I think to a certain degree this channel doesn't do very well sometimes, is books, movies, games, products and services, taste tests, video games, art, music. That's really too much. It's too wide a spectrum of things. And so I tend to lose people. It's sort of like the old joke about it's not really a joke, I don't think. The old saying about like things like Swiss Army knives. My Swiss Army knife here has a Phillips head screwdriver, has a pair of scissors, and it has a pen in it. Cool, right? That's a very cool multi-tool. That pen is kind of a crappy pen. This scissor, not the best thing in the world. If you have the option of something else, you should probably use something else. And that screwdriver, it's gonna flip out of every screw you try to do it because it's not the best Phillips head, but it's good enough when you need one in a pinch. And so, like, in anything that does everything kind of bad. But I'm also, I'm hardcore not a specialist. I'm never going to pretend to be a specialist. Good night. I will catch you tomorrow. Yeah, I should probably go too. I got to work on some things. All right. Take care. Have a good night. See you tomorrow. Good night. Bum, bum, bum.